I've been holding a series of events in San Francisco with some of the leading thinkers in the world on this. And it's an elite invite only, 250 people to an event, and I get about a dozen of the most remarkable ones, do little 5-minute talks. And we've done several of them. We did one in the early part of the summer. I was looking at the implications of AI, like what really is going on with this technology? How big a deal is this? And I do want to just share with you that it's a very big deal. It's probably the biggest deal. It's probably bigger than the internet. It's probably the biggest technological development that any of us are going to go through in our lifetimes. And this is a guy who's co-founder of Google Brain Team. I had him here, who's fantastic. And just to put it in perspective, he says, I feel that there hasn't been a moment that I've been alive where there's been a larger space of possibilities that have just come up over the horizon than have come up in the last year or so. He goes on to all kinds of amazing things that he can do there inside Google. This is Michelle Lee, who, besides many things, had run the patent office, but also had been a top person at Web in Amazon on their machine learning. And she even said, this is before ChatGPT, she said, even before the announcement of ChatGPT back in November of last year, I was a believer that artificial intelligence is the most transformative technology of our generation. And so she's kind of confirmed. And she's coming again from the patent office, who's been overseeing all kinds of things in that world, and she knows what's innovation. And this one is the one that really struck me. This is a guy, Jerry Kaplan really was the first person to found an AI company back in let's say, the early 80s, funny enough. And he's also one of the guys that basically invented the tablet before the iPad and all that kind of stuff. But he said this, he said, the truth is generative AI is going to be much more important than any other invention. He had been talking about other big inventions. It might be the most important human invention ever. I'm genuinely, seriously grateful to live to see this moment. I had never expected to see this in my life. This is a common statement I've heard from many people, and again, I've been in the Valley for 30 years. Many people thought we'd never hit this in our lifetimes, but that this would be something that in a century or something we'd figure this out. But it's been an amazing breakthrough in the last, about the last decade here, which if you really get into it. Now, I've also talked, had another event which was all about the positive possibilities of this. Because there's a lot of kind of negative spin, and everyone's like, freaking out about this thing. And so we brought together a similar group, 250 amazing invite-only folks, a dozen of them to kind of talk about what's interesting. Peter Schwartz is one of the great futurists of our time, but he's also the chief futures officer for Salesforce. He mentioned it, he kind of pointed out just one of these aspects about existence, basically. He said, how many of you have an executive assistant? I have 2. This is typical Peter. I've known Peter for a he's basically a mentor of mine. He said, they handle complexity for me. The world has become very, very complex, and a very good executive assistant solves all that so you can focus on the things that really matter. And that's what we will have very shortly. And by very shortly, I don't mean years, I mean now. Meaning everybody, and this is a common thing, in the next year to 2, basically all knowledge workers will have a very capable executive assistant that'll match what a lot of kind of human executive assistants are. In fact, I've had actually 3 startups in my life. The first hire I always do is an executive assistant because it triples my productivity, and that's essentially what's going to happen to all these knowledge workers. And this is kind of another guy, just give an example, a great economics historian, basically, but also came out with a great book recently here, Brad DeLong. And he put it in this he said, genuinely useful machine learning is a huge deal. Individuals in the American economy will soon see a huge productivity bonanza. The 20% of the American workforce who are knowledge workers will come close to doubling what they can do individually in the next couple years. Now, economists are starting to recalibrate what could the growth of the entire economy go if we actually start punching up the productivity rates of all these workers. And it's not just going to be limited to knowledge workers. That's just the first frontier. But you're going to see this go through the whole economy. It's an extraordinary development that's actually upending many, many people's thoughts of what's happening.